Marissa's face froze the second the backyard started clapping. Not the normal, "Oh wow, thank you" surprise face. Not even a polite smile, just that tight stretched look like she'd bitten into something sour and didn't want anyone to see it. Her eyes didn't even land on me. They slid past my shoulder like I was a piece of patio furniture. I stood there with a plate in one hand and the mic in the other, the waterfall behind our pool humming like it always did and 30-some people waiting for her to react like a wife who still liked her husband. She gave me a smile that belonged on a billboard, not on a woman's face. Wow. She clipped out. How fun. Like I bought her a novelty mug. A second earlier. The whole yard was alive. My guys from Arizona Comfort and Air were laughing near the smoker. My partner, Ryan Blake, had his arm around his wife while his kids ran laps around the grill island. Caleb Norris, my lead tech, the one who could rebuild a condenser with a pocket knife, was showing my neighbor's teenager how to check a capacitor. Marissa's coworkers from that luxury resort were clustered together, sunglasses and fake bright voices, acting like my backyard was their stage. And there I was, trying to give my wife of 11 years a moment. Her face told me I'd misread the room, or worse, she'd been in a different room the whole time. If I'd known where it was headed, I would have put the mic down right then and saved myself the trouble. Earlier that morning, I'd been up before the sun because running an HVAC company in Phoenix means you don't get to sleep in just because the calendar says holiday. I'd set the smoker, checked the brisket, started the playlist, and moved like I always do. Quiet, deliberate, making sure things work. Marissa had rolled over, groaned at my alarm, and muttered, "It's a holiday. You have to be so extra." Extra, because I wanted our guests to have hot food and cold drinks. I'd let it slide. Small comment. Not worth a fight. But standing there with that mic, watching her smile like I was a coworker who had brought donuts, I felt something shift. I lowered the mic a little. "You okay?" She kept smiling. "I'm great. Everybody's watching. Don't make it weird." That was her specialty, turning my concern into my problem. I looked over the crowd, searching for a friendly face to ground myself. Ryan gave me a small nod like, "Yeah, I saw it, too." Caleb's eyebrows lifted. Then he looked away, suddenly interested in his cup. Marissa stepped closer, still smiling, and whispered through her teeth, "You didn't tell me about this." I wanted it to be a surprise. "Well," she replied, eyes still not on me. "Surprise." She took the mic from my hand like she was taking a prop. "Thanks, babe," she announced to the yard, brighter now. "That's so thoughtful." Then she turned away before I could answer, already moving back toward her friends. Phone out, snapping a selfie with the pool waterfall behind her like the whole thing was content. I stood there and watched my own wife harvest my work for a post. And that's when Tara decided to blow the whole thing up. Tara was Marissa's best friend. If you define best friend as the person who laughs the loudest at your jokes and knows all your secrets. She was a little too loud, a little too glossy-eyed, and she'd been sipping something all afternoon like it was her job. She raised her cup and called out across the patio, "Ethan." I turned, still holding my plate like an idiot. Tra grinned. "So, you're really ready to move on?" The yard kind of stuttered. A few laughs died halfway out. I blinked. "Move on from what?" Tara tilted her head confused like I was pretending from, you know. Marissa said, "You guys had an arrangement." An arrangement. My stomach didn't drop. I don't do dramatic drops. It just went quiet inside me like a room with the power cut. I kept my voice even. "Tara, what are you talking about?" She waved her hand like, "Don't be shy." "The timing. The whole 11-year thing." She said, "You knew." Marissa spun around so fast her ponytail snapped. "Tara," she hissed. "Stop." Tara's smile faltered. "What?" "He's literally announcing Napa like it's a farewell tour." I set my plate down on the counter beside the outdoor sink. Slow, controlled. Everybody was watching now. Not clapping, not laughing, just watching. I asked, "What's the name, Tara?" Tara's eyes flicked to Marissa, then back to me. "Nathan." Marissa started walking toward the house quick, like she could outrun words. She grabbed a tray of buns from the prep table like that would change the topic. Let's not do this. Marissa snapped without looking at me. Not here. I stepped forward, blocking her path without touching her. No, right here. Her hands shook. The tray tipped. Buns rolled across the pavers like little beige escapees. A couple of people bent to pick them up. Nobody spoke. The waterfall kept running because my house doesn't care about human stupidity. Tara sobered up by about 50% in one breath. I mean, I thought you knew. She said it's been going on since last August. Marissa's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at the crowd and tried to find control. She went for the old play. Tara's drunk. She's confused. Can we please go inside? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't plead. I just made it simple. Marissa, I said, you're not leaving this patio until you answer one question. Her eyes flashed. Ethan, you're embarrassing me. I let a small laugh out. It wasn't friendly. I'm embarrassing you. That's rich. Ryan moved closer, not in my face, just near enough that I could feel back up without needing to ask. Caleb took one step away from the grill and stood still like a man watching a pressure gauge climb. I asked Tara, who is Nathan? Tara swallowed. Nathan Pierce from her work, like upper management boss of her boss. Marissa cut in sharp. Stop saying his name. I looked at Marissa. So it's real. It's complicated. She snapped. Complicated is a broken thermostat. This is a choice. One of Marissa's coworkers, Janelle, I think, murmured, "Oh my God." Like she was watching reality TV. Marissa grabbed her phone from the counter, thumb already moving. I saw the screen light up with a name and a little heart icon. Not mine. My voice stayed flat. Are you texting him right now? She didn't answer. That was her answer. I nodded once like I just confirmed a serial number. Okay. Tara started babbling, trying to fix what she'd broken. She said the plan was next month, that he was going to move in. I thought you talked. I turned my head slowly back to Marissa. Move in here. Marissa's face went white, then read. You are not going to do this in front of everyone. I leaned an elbow on the counter, casual on the outside because I refused to fall apart on my own patio. You already did it in front of everyone. I'm just asking questions. She tried another angle, softer. Ethan, please, let's go inside. We can talk. That word talk coming out of her mouth felt like a tool, like a wrench she'd used to take something apart. Ryan spoke up calm. Marissa, he asked you a question. She glared at Ryan like he'd crossed a line. I asked how long. Marissa's chin lifted. Does it matter? I stared at her. That's not an answer. Try again. She looked around and realized she didn't have the yard anymore. She had her phone, her pride, and whatever story she could cobble together. 10 months, she muttered. A few people sucked in air like they just burned their tongue. Someone's kids stopped running and just stood there, confused by adult silence. I kept going. What else? She scoffed. What do you mean, what else? I tilted my head. Money, plans, paperwork. What else have you been doing while I'm out fixing people's AC in 110-degree summer? Marissa's eyes flicked again to her phone. Another tap. Ryan's wife pulled her kids closer without saying a word. Tara blurted. She talked to someone in February. Like a consultant for the split. She was calculating the timing. Marissa snapped. Shut up, Tara. I raised a hand. Not aggressive, just final. No, don't shut up. Keep talking. Tara's voice shook now. She's got a secret card. She bragged about it. Like 23 grand on it. Marissa's head whipped toward Tara. Are you out of your mind? I looked at Marissa. Is it true? She didn't deny it. She just stared at me like I'd stolen something from her. I nodded again. Okay. Where the 31 come from? That got her. Her eyes widened a fraction because I wasn't guessing. I was connecting. Last fall, when she'd been working late on a big resort project, I'd noticed little things. A weird cash withdrawal here. A grocery run that cost too much there. Gift cards bought like they were party favors. I'd asked once lightly and she'd smiled too fast. "It's for work stuff," she'd said. You wouldn't get it. I didn't fight. I logged it. Quiet men don't forget. We just wait until we have enough. I watched her mouth tighten. "You're making numbers up." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I didn't wave it around. I just held it like a tool. Joint savings. 31,000 missing over months. Cash withdrawals, gift cards, a new account you didn't tell me about. You want to keep lying in front of our neighbors? Or are we done with the pretending? The yard stayed dead silent. Then Megan Ortiz, our neighbor, mid-30s, sharp eyes, always walking her dog like she's on patrol, spoke up from near the fence. "I recorded part of it," she said, almost apologetic. "I thought it might get messy." Marissa stared at Megan like she wanted to erase her. Megan lifted her phone slightly. "It's not for social. It's what happened." Marissa's voice went thin. "Everyone needs to leave." I smiled without warmth. "No, you don't get to dismiss my guest from my house because your plan got exposed." She took a step toward me, lowering her voice. "Ethan, stop. You're going to ruin everything." I looked at her. "Everything or your timeline?" That's when her phone buzzed again and she turned her body away from me, shielding the screen like a teenager. And 15 minutes later, a silver sedan rolled up my driveway like it belonged there. It parked like it belonged there, too. Nose in, confident, like a man arriving at a home he'd already picked out. A tall guy stepped out, polished haircut, crisp shirt, watch catching the sun. He scanned the backyard, took in the crowd, and still walked like he had a meeting to run. Nathan Pierce. He didn't look at me first. He looked at Marissa. Marissa's shoulders dropped with relief. Not guilt, relief. Like she'd called security. Ryan shifted closer to my right side. Not a word, just presence. Nathan walked through my gate, smiling like he was trying to sell a service contract. "Ethan, right," he said, hand half extended. I didn't take it. He let the hand fall smoothly like he'd practiced rejection. "Okay, I can see emotions are high. I'm here to make sure this stays respectful." I glanced at his shoes. Clean backyard, unfriendly. "Respectful," I repeated. "You picked a weird place to introduce that concept." Marissa cut in breathy. "Nathan, please." Nathan held up a palm toward her like he was calming a client. Then he addressed me again. "Look, I know this isn't what you expected, but people don't choose how they feel." I let out a short laugh. "You're in my backyard telling me about feelings." Tara made a small noise behind someone's shoulder. Caleb stared at Nathan like he was a faulty part that didn't belong in the unit. Nathan kept going. Still smooth. "Marissa and I didn't plan for it to happen this way, but it's real. We care about each other and we want to handle the transition." "Stop." My voice wasn't loud. It was sharp enough to cut. Nathan paused. I stepped forward one pace. "You're not running a transition in my house." Marissa flared. "It's my house, too." I turned my head toward her slowly. "No, it's not." That landed like a drop tool on concrete. She scoffed, trying to save face. "Excuse me." I kept it simple because simple is deadly in a crowd. This property was bought before we got married. I built half of it with my own hands. Pool, terrace, kitchen, the whole thing. You've enjoyed it, but you don't get to replace me in it like I'm an old couch. Nathan's jaw tightened. "Ethan, there are legal realities." I cut him off with a look. "Don't bring paperwork into my barbecue. You came here because she texted you like you're her solution. You're not. You're just a guy standing on my pavers." Ryan finally spoke calm and low. "Nathan, you should probably leave." Nathan glanced at Ryan annoyed. "And you are Ryan Blake?" Ryan answered. Co-owner of the company Ethan's been running while your friend here plays house. Nathan's smile wobbled for the first time. Marissa stepped forward, eyes wet now, switching tactics fast. Ethan, please. Can we not do this like this? Not in front of everyone. I looked around the yard. You mean in front of witnesses? That word hung there without me pushing it. Megan shifted her phone in her hand like she suddenly understood why she'd started recording. Caleb's voice came out rough. Boss, you want me to call your locksmith guy? Marissa snapped at him. Stay out of this. Caleb didn't even blink. No. I held up a hand toward Caleb. Not yet. Then I faced Marissa again. Here's what's happening. You're packing a bag, too. If you can carry them, and you're leaving tonight. Her mouth fell open. You can't just kick me out. I gave her the same look I give a customer when they tell me their AC will fix itself. Patient but done. Watch me. Nathan stepped in, voice firm. Now, this is not how adults handle marriage. I looked at him like he'd told a joke. Adults don't show up to another man's home expecting to move in next month. Marissa snapped. You're doing this to hurt me. I shrugged. No, I'm doing it to protect myself. You were already doing what you wanted. I'm just changing the rules. She stared at me, breathing fast, trying to find an opening. Where am I supposed to go? I nodded toward Nathan's car. Looks like your ride is right there. The crowd didn't cheer. Nobody clapped, but I saw something in their faces. The moment they stopped, wondering if I'd be the guy who got walked over. Marissa's eyes shifted, searching for sympathy. She found none. She tried soft again, voice lower. Ethan, I didn't want it to come out like this. That's the only honest thing you've said all day, I replied. You wanted it clean, quiet, timed. You wanted me smiling in photos while you moved money and lined up your next address. Nathan's eyes flicked sharp. What money? Marissa shot him a look that said, shut up. Oh, so he didn't know everything. Interesting. I leaned back against the counter. Go pack. She didn't move. Ryan's voice came in. Steady, Marissa, he's not asking. Her eyes flashed at Ryan again. Then she turned and stormed toward the house. As she passed me, she hissed. You're going to regret humiliating me. I smiled. Don't worry. I'm keeping the receipts. She disappeared inside. The yard stayed frozen in place like everybody was waiting for the next thunderclap. I looked at Nathan. You want to stand here while she packs, or do you want to take your shoes off in someone else's house? Nathan's jaw worked. You're making a mistake. I nodded once. You're free to believe that from your driveway. He walked toward the gate. Slower now. Less owner, more visitor. Ryan exhaled quiet. You all right? I answered honestly. I'm clear. And I was. That's the weird part. Once the fog burns off, the air is sharp, but you can see. While Marissa was upstairs, I pulled out my phone and opened my calendar. I canceled Napa. Not out of spite, out of principle. A trip is for a couple. We weren't that anymore. Then I opened my banking app and moved what I could move. Not dramatic, not petty, just separating what needed to be separated. Caleb edged closer. Boss, you want me to get the guys to head out? I shook my head. No, let them eat. Let them see what respect looks like. He nodded like he understood. That was my initiative right there before she came back down with her performance. I took control of the timeline she thought she owned. Marissa came downstairs 20 minutes later with 2 suitcases, eyes puffy, shoulders stiff. She didn't look at the guests. She looked at me like I was a judge. She could still charm. She tried a new tone, softer. Ethan, can we please do this privately? I'm sorry you found out like that. Found out like it was an accident. Like the truth tripped and fell into my lap. I kept my voice level. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry, Tara got sloppy. Tara made a small sound, half cry, half gasp. Marissa shot her a look like she wanted to slap her with it. Then she turned back to me, eyes shiny. I don't want to fight. I just wanted to be calm. I nodded, then keep walking. She stepped toward the gate. Nathan opened it without a word now, face tight. As she passed Megan held her phone closer to her chest, not taunting, just guarding evidence. Marissa paused at the threshold and looked back at me, voice trembling. So that's it. 11 years and you're just throwing me away. I stepped forward one pace, not chasing, just closing distance enough to end it clean. No, I'm removing someone who stopped acting like a wife and started acting like a visitor with an agenda. Her lips parted like she had more lines, more tactics. I didn't give her room. You wanted the right moment. Here it is. She stared, then turned and walked out. Nathan carried the suitcases to the car. He didn't look at me again. Not because he was polite, because he finally understood he was standing in the wrong man's life. The car backed out of my driveway and disappeared into the Scottsdale afternoon. People didn't know what to do with themselves. Ryan broke the silence first. All right, he said, clapping once quick. Food's still hot. Kids, don't run near the pool. Caleb let out a breath like he'd been holding it for an hour. A couple of my texts nodded at me with a new kind of respect. Quiet, serious. Janelle and Marissa's coworkers started gathering their purses, awkward, whispering. Megan walked over and held up her phone. Do you want me to send you that clip? I nodded. Yeah, please. She sent it. No drama. Just a neighbor doing what a neighbor does when she sees someone trying to rewrite reality. The rest of the afternoon ended like a party that got interrupted by weather. People ate, people talked low, some left early, some stayed because they didn't want to abandon me in the crater. Ryan's wife squeezed my shoulder once. You handled that, she said. Simple, I answered. I had no other option. By nightfall, the yard was empty. The smoker was off. The lights on the terrace made everything look normal again, which felt insulting. I walked through the house and started doing what men like me do when the ground shifts logistics. I didn't sit and stare at walls. I didn't send long texts. I didn't beg for explanations. She'd already explained with actions. I changed the access codes. I called my locksmith guy and had him come first thing in the morning to rekey the doors. I made a list of accounts, subscriptions, anything shared. I boxed up her remaining toiletries from the guest bathroom she'd been using lately because yes, we'd already started living like roommates without saying it. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Marissa. I let it ring. Then she texted. I'm sorry. Can we talk tomorrow, please? There it was. The first illusion. Softness after losing ground. I didn't reply. Another text came in 5 minutes later. I never wanted to hurt you. I still care about you. Care. Another billboard word. I replied with one line. Communication can be email. Do not come to the house. No emotion, just a boundary. The next morning, I drove to my shop. Not because I had to, because I needed my space to stay mine. And the shop is where my head works. Arizona Comfort and Air sits in a light industrial strip with sun-faded signs and real men doing real work. The smell of metal, coolant, and coffee you can stand a spoon in. Caleb was already there, leaning over a workbench, sorting parts. He looked up. You sleep. Enough, I answered. Ryan rolled in a few minutes later, took one look at me, and nodded toward his office. Come on. Inside, he shut the door. You want me to take calls today? I can run the front. I shook my head. No, I'm not disappearing. I'm just adjusting. That was initiative number 2. I didn't hide. I restructured. I opened my laptop and changed permissions on our shared business tools. Not as a punishment, as a fact. Marissa had been using my name and my company's success like a backdrop. That ended today. Caleb knocked once and stepped in. That resource place called. They're asking if Marissa can get a discount for their maintenance contract. Something about keeping it in the family. I laughed short and sharp. So now it's family. Caleb's face stayed serious. What do you want me to tell them? I didn't hesitate. Tell them pricing stays the same. And tell them all communication goes through their facilities director. Not her. Caleb nodded once. Done. Ryan leaned back in his chair. She's going to try something. I know, I replied. But she's used to operating in gray areas. I don't do gray. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Marissa. This one was different. Can you please send me some money? Nathan and I are figuring things out and I need a little help until I get settled. I stared at it. That didn't take long. I showed it to Ryan without a word. Ryan whistled low. Bold. I typed back. You have your secret card. Use it. Then I set my phone face down. At lunch, Tara called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Ethan, she started, voice shaky. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean I cut her off. You meant to run your mouth. You just didn't mean the consequences. She sniffed. Marissa is furious with me. I let a pause sit there. That's her problem. Tara rushed on. She's saying you're controlling, that you knew that you had some agreement. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the shop floor through the glass. Caleb and 2 texts were loading a van like life still made sense. There was no agreement. I know, Tara whispered. I know. She told me things about the 11-year mark, about the house. She kept saying you'd roll over because you're a simple guy. I smiled at that because it was so perfectly wrong. It was almost funny. A simple guy. I repeated, tell her simple guys built that house. Simple guys keep businesses alive in Phoenix summers. Simple guys don't play games. Tara exhaled. What are you going to do? I kept it clean. I'm going to keep my life. She swallowed. She also said she's been saving screenshots, messages like to make you look bad. There was the next open loop tightening. I didn't panic. I logged it. Send me anything you have. I don't have them. Tara stammered. But she used to brag. She said you have to calculate the timing. 11 years is a magic number. She literally said that magic number. That phrase made my skin crawl. I ended the call with thanks for the information. Don't call me again. Then I got up and walked out to the shop floor. Caleb looked up. Everything good? I answered. Everything's real. He nodded like that was enough. That night, Marissa showed up with another tactic. She didn't come to the house. I'd made that clear. She came to the edge of my world, the coffee place near my shop that I stop at on the way home. I walked in, grabbed my cup, turned, and there she was near the window like a staged photo. Hair done, eyes red on purpose, soft sweater like we were back in year 2. She stood fast, blocking my path. Ethan, I didn't stop walking. I angled around her. Move. Her voice cracked. Please. I stopped then, not because she deserved it, but because I don't run from conversations. I just control them. What? I asked. Do you want? She stepped closer. Hands slightly out like she was approaching a nervous animal. I want to fix this. I raised an eyebrow. Fix or finish on your terms. Her face tightened then softened again like she was flipping through a script. I made mistakes. I got carried away. It didn't mean I cut her off. Don't. People were staring. Not a crowd like my backyard, but enough. Different territory that mattered. She wanted to corner me in public where I'd be careful. I was careful, just not weak. She swallowed Nathan and I. It's not stable like I thought. He has complications. I let out a quiet laugh. Complications. That's what you told me about your late nights, too. She winced. Ethan, please. I'm asking you as someone who knows me. 11 years. You can't just erase that. I'm not erasing it. I replied. I'm learning from it. Her eyes filled. I can come home. We can go to Napa. We can start fresh. There it was. Over-the-top sweetness. The second illusion. She was offering my own gift back to me like a peace offering. I leaned in slightly, kept my voice low. You don't get to crawl back into my house because your plan hit turbulence. Her expression hardened for a split second. Then she forced softness again, so you're just going to throw me away like garbage? I shrugged. No, garbage gets picked up. You chose to leave. She flinched like I'd slapped her with truth. She tried another hook. You're not being fair. I smiled. Fair was me building a home while you built an exit. Her mouth opened. Then she shifted tactics again. Sharper. You think you're so righteous? You're just mad you lost control. I tilted my head. Marissa, you never had control. You had access. I'm correcting that. Her voice rose. People are going to hear my side. I nodded. They already did on Memorial Day with witnesses. Her face went pale. She realized she couldn't rewrite what 30 people saw. She reached out like she might grab my arm, then stopped herself. Ethan, please. I don't have anywhere else. I looked at her, really looked. Not with hate, with clarity. You had 10 months to plan, I said. You'll figure it out. Then I stepped around her and walked out. Behind me, I heard her call my name again, louder, but I didn't turn. Turning is how the loop starts over. 2 days later, she tried one last move. She emailed me a long message full of soft words and selective memory. She attached a photo of us from last year at a resort event. Me in a button-down looking like a guy who didn't belong. Her looking perfect. Then she wrote, I never stopped loving you. I just needed more. Nathan understands my world. My world. That phrase again. I replied with 3 sentences. Do not contact my employees. Do not contact my neighbors. Your remaining belongings will be boxed and delivered to a storage unit. You no longer have access to the house. No insults, no drama, just doors closing. The next morning, locksmith came. New keys, new codes. The house felt quieter, but it also felt mine again. Megan waved from her driveway when she saw the van. You good? I nodded. Getting there. She lifted her phone like a salute. If she tries to spin it, I've got the clip. I gave her a small smile. Appreciate you. That weekend, Ryan brought over steaks. No questions. Caleb showed up with a cooler and stayed for an hour. Talked about work like normal because normal is a gift when your life gets flipped. At one point, Ryan looked around the backyard, pool, waterfall, terrace, expanded board by board, and he said, Man, she really thought she could just swap out the driver and keep the truck. I chuckled. Yeah, well, the title's in my name. A month later, I heard through someone at the resort that Nathan didn't move in anywhere. He stayed right where he was. Clean shoes, clean hands, clean exit. Marissa bounced between a couple of friends, then ended up in a small apartment that didn't have a waterfall, didn't have a terrace, and definitely didn't have a man willing to fund her timeline. Meanwhile, I kept working. The business grew. We landed a couple of solid contracts because I was focused, not distracted by living with someone who treated me like a temporary obstacle. I started showing up for myself in ways I hadn't in years. Early mornings in my garage gym, weekend drives north just because the highway was open, dinners with Ryan's family and a couple of the guys from the shop, talking about real stuff, and laughing like men do when nobody's performing. And yeah, later on I met someone. Not a rebound, not a trophy. A woman who didn't need a crowd to treat me like I mattered. We took things slow. The first time she came over, she looked at the backyard and said, You built all this. I nodded. She smiled. That's impressive. Also, this outdoor kitchen is dangerous. I laughed. Only if you let me cook. She bumped my shoulder and said, Deal, but I'm not here for pictures. I'm here for dinner. That line hit harder than any apology Marissa ever typed. I don't know what Marissa tells herself now. Maybe she calls it finding herself. Maybe she says I was controlling. People like that always need a story where they're the hero. Here's mine. Simple and clean. A man walked into my driveway like my home was already his. He was wrong. And my wife learned in front of everyone she tried to impress that respect isn't something you negotiate after you burn it down. The last thing I ever said to her, the final sentence that closed the whole chapter was this. You wanted the right moment. You got it, just not the one you planned.